Prithwish, so you were at this Cornell event recently. It was a big hospitality event, I understand. Can you tell us more?
Yeah, so this is the Cornell Hospitality Research Summit. It's been happening for the last few years. Happens once in 2 years. And what's unique about this event, Ram, is that this has a lot of representation, not just from the business, but also from the academia. So you get this over the 2 or 2.5 days of the conference. It's just a constant flow of ideas and innovative practices, both from the research side of the industry as well as the usage side of the industry, which is why we have been very regular at this conference. And this year, in the 2014 edition, we were also invited as one of the speakers at the event, where we spoke about this relatively new phenomenon in hospitality called the persuadable guest.
So help me understand a little more about who the persuadable guest is. Is it a completely new segment of people you're trying to reach out to? Is it a sub-segment of your existing database, or is it something else?
Actually, why don't we just take a step back? Today, most marketers know, at least the smart marketers who are using a lot of data, they know who it is that will respond to an offer or a message and who it is that absolutely won't and be completely unresponsive. That helps, but only to a point. The persuadable guest actually comes in the bucket of the responsive bucket, right? What happens is, within the responsive guests, there is always a set who we call the surefires, who would have responded to you anyway. And then there is the sweet spot, which we call the persuadable guest, who have responded to you only because they have received that offer. So what we are identifying or help people identify are these fence sitters, people whose decisions are being influenced just because of the offer.
So what is the business problem you're trying to solve here?
Look at hospitality marketing and how it's been done. One thing you'll realize is it's filled with offers and more deals and discounts. And go to any website today for a booking, you will be filled with more promotions than you need, right? Secondly, if you look closely enough at these offers, you will realize that they are very, very cost intensive. Talk about 15% discount on the room. Talk about a 4th free night after you've booked 3 nights with me. Talk about a free golf experience because you've stayed with me for 3 days. And there are membership discounts. There's the whole loyalty program contour that comes into play here. When you look at that, there is a huge cost that every hospitality company bears. And the third piece to that, the problem is over-targeting itself. Now, over-targeting has multiple disadvantages, some of which are very obvious and some of which aren't. The obvious ones being there's a loss in revenue, you don't need to end up reaching out to so many people. The not so obvious one that we found from our work is that you end up triggering a shopping behavior. For customers or guests who were never looking for an offer, who would have come to you anyway, now you've given them an idea. You've given them a reason to start shopping with your competitors because you have given them that offer. So that's when they go out into the marketplace and they look for more and more options, and who knows, maybe you'll lose out.
Whatever you've spoken so far about the persuadable guest is quite interesting, but how does it become real? How do you really go about doing it?
Actually, technically and mathematically speaking, it's a matter of separating out the responsive versus the persuadable, and how basically how that happens is, if you are just separating out the responsive guests, then what you're checking for is the probability. If the probability of buying when given an offer is high, then that's a responsive guest. In persuadable guest, we are saying if the probability of buying when given an offer is higher, significantly higher than the probability of buying without the offer,
Two different.
then that's your persuadable guest. So essentially that means we go into the customer database for each offer. Remember that this happens, it can happen at an offer level, it can happen at a larger promotion level, it can happen in loyalty. I mean, it's really about what are you trying to persuade for. So depending on that, you go into the customer database. Now let me give you an example. Ram, you may be more persuadable for a golf experience, while I may be more persuaded by a rock concert, you know. So the reason for persuasion between the two of us will really vary. So for each offer, finding the persuasion score for that customer, for each customer, and being able to score it for millions and millions of customers, that's where the money becomes real.
Great. Can you share some stories of where you've been able to do this?
Sure. That's my favorite part of this interaction, I'm sure. Very recently, we've done this work for quite a few of our clients, not just within hospitality, but across industries. But very recently, we had the opportunity to do an in-market test of one of these. So let me give you that example. So for one of our hotel clients, they're a pretty large global hotel chain, US based. We had the opportunity to do that in-market tests, and for one promotion, this is the result of that promotion. This is what I'm going to share with you is one promotion over 1 quarter. What we found is that after we identified the persuadable guests for them for that promotion, the first thing that they did was to stop reaching out to people. Right? They reached out to lesser people than they otherwise would have. There was an immediate bottom line saving because of that, because you saved cost for reaching out to those people, redeeming those offers, etc. What they did with that, and I think that was close to about a $2 million impact for one promotion.
Wow.
They took those $2 million and put it right back into the promotion, into the same one. By doing that, the persuadable guests got a richer offer. Because they got a richer offer, the redemption percentage significantly increased, and that resulted in an additional $6 million of benefit to the top line.
Wow, fantastic.
So yeah, that was a great experience that we had very recently.
Fantastic, fantastic. Great. So what were some of the other themes being discussed at this Cornell event?
It's a good question. I think there were 3 or 4. The first one that I heard personally, and please remember that there are parallel sessions running at all times, so no single person can end up attending all sessions. But from what I saw, one of the very big topics and interest areas was to see how hospitality companies are going to leverage big data. And in their world, what they're trying to see is what other data sources can they bring in to make their analysis and their view of the customer much richer than what it is right now. In fact, one idea that Mr. Ted Teng from the leading hotels of the world came up with, which I thought was absolute gold, was to say that the hospitality industry will change the day all hotel companies decide to share data with each other.
Wow.
You know,
That would be something.
Yeah, I mean, look at how that changed the banking industry with credit ratings data being shared across banks, and banks today can call each other and ask for data of customers who aren't even their own. And when that comes down to one source, I think the hospitality industry will really change. It's a whole different matter.
It's a visionary statement.
Yes, and it remains to be seen who's going to bell the cat, because I don't think. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a business. Nobody really wants to share their data with, at least not with their competitors. But that remains to be seen. Doesn't take away from the idea. The second thing that I found, which was interesting, is how ignorant our hospitality practitioners have been towards the overall hospitality space. Now, we tend to get carried away by thinking that the hospitality space is just about, the hotels and the cruise lines and the restaurants, and the resorts and the vacation rentals and what have you. We might have, and as analytics professionals, I think this was more a learning for me rather than a learning for the industry, was that we might have been a little ignorant towards certain other sub-segments which are extremely powerful, can do a lot with data, but no one's really talking to them. One specific example that I can share with you is from the food services industry. Just to give you a sense of magnitude, where hotels represent $600 billion as an industry, food services represents $1.3 trillion as an industry.
Wow.
So that came as a big, waking call for me, and I've made my own mental note. I've in fact started speaking to a few professionals from that sub-segment, because I think it's important. If you are trying to establish yourself as a hospitality practitioner, it's very important to widen the horizon a little bit, because remember that there is always cross-pollination and cross-learning that happens within sub-segments. So that was the second piece. That was more personal learning. And the third piece is not really a business issue or an industry issue, if you will, but I thought it was worth noting. Remember that the Cornell Hospitality Research Summit represents both the business as well as the academia. There were multiple conversations rather which talked about bridging the gap between academia and the business. And what I mean by that is, the academia is chasing its own set of goals. They're trying to see what papers they can publish, in which journals they will be printed, so that it impacts their careers in many different ways, which is all great. But they are unable to find the money to put into that kind of research. The business is saying, I'm willing to put in the money behind your research and to publish your paper, but I need the results not in 5 years, because by the time you publish those results, it'll be long gone. The issue would have probably already been solved. So that's a constant tug of war that I found there. Again, I don't know if there's a solution for this, but I really do feel that perhaps because I end up speaking with more people from the business side than the academia side, that the academia needs to realize that research needs to impact day-to-day business. Otherwise, it is nothing better than a cool science project. And the business cannot put in money behind something that is not going to give them, what's that favorite word, ROI. So I think big tug of war. It might take a couple more sessions for these two groups to kind of meet and come to a common ground. But yeah, that was an interesting trend that I noticed there. And there's a fourth one, which was totally about talent and acquiring the right talent and retaining them, because the hospitality industry itself is extremely challenging space to be working in. So to find the right people and to keep them motivated, there were lots of conversations around how it's not just the money, but it's also about the recognition and things that we have read in books many times, but we still struggle to see being practiced a lot. But it was good to see that some of the, not just the bigger brands, but even some of the relatively smaller brands that were there were doing so much more to say that employees come first and maybe the guests actually might come second to employees. So yeah, lots of thoughts around that which were interesting to see.
Great, great. Thank you so much for sharing the stories from your event.
Thank you very much. Thanks.